Howdy and welcome to episode 20 of the 240SX2JZ swap. In this episode, we're going to be turning the key for the very first time. And I won't keep you waiting too long, but before I show you the clip of me trying to turn the car on for the very first time, there are a few things I'd like to go over first. A quick little montage of what I've got done since the last episode to this one. So I'm going to show you that right here. So the first thing I did was call up Haltech and have them remote access my computer just so they could look over my ECU settings and make sure everything looked okay, and luckily they did. So then it was time to fill it up with fluid, so here's me putting some 93 octane in it. Now I'm filling it up with oil. This is BR40 break-in oil, specifically meant for breaking in engines. And here's me filling up the power steering system. And then I decided to do a compression test. I'm very nervous. We're doing a compression test for the first time, and anything could happen. I don't know what numbers to expect. Let's start with cylinder number 6. Stop. That's 165, or 155. Stop. 150 on the dot, so that's good. 155. Oh. Yeah, battery's like destroyed. Technical issues, we will be right back. All right, and we're back. 2 car batteries wired in parallel. Let's see what kind of numbers we get. Stop. That's 170. Right. 160 on the dot. Stop.
It's supposed to sound like that?
Well, not exactly. All right, I'm gonna prime the oil now. So I took out all the spark plugs and I'm just gonna crank over the engine until I see oil pressure on our gauge. This is just to make sure that we get oil everywhere it needs to go in the system before we start it up. And my heart is pounding because we're like half an hour away from turning the key on this thing for the first time. So let's see if we can get some oil pressure. I've been cranking this thing forever. I've probably dry cranked it for like 4 minutes straight or something, and it still hasn't built pressure, but I'm sticking with it. I've got jumper cables to a running car, so we're not killing the battery. It's kind of funny. I'm just in there cranking it for 15 seconds on, 30 seconds off, and probably at about 3 minutes of cranking, 4 minutes of cranking, we haven't seen any pressure yet, so I'm not too worried. Bad news strikes again, guys. I cannot get the oil primed in this engine. I've tried just about everything. I filled up the oil cooler, I filled up the oil filter, I filled up lines, topped it off, and I cranked it for probably overall like 8 to 9 minutes. Really spread out so we didn't kill the starter. And I can't get any oil pressure whatsoever. Some people say you can't build oil pressure just by dry cranking a built motor. I don't really believe that because my oil pump is totally OEM, hasn't been ported or anything. So what I'm gonna do, and this kills me, is that I'm gonna buy what's called an engine oil primer tank. And it's basically a pressurized tank that forces oil pressurized through the oil feed line so that you're pretty much forcing the block to be primed, if that makes sense. And that is gonna be shipped here, so it's gonna take a couple of days. So it is a real bummer. We have to wait. Like, the engine's ready to go, kind of, and we have to wait however long it's gonna take to get this thing shipped. So gonna wait, get that thing in, and then I'll check in with you guys when that comes. All right, we're back, guys. And here I have the oil primer tank. Finally came in the mail, and it's full of oil, so I drained the oil out of the engine into here. And then all that needs to happen now is to pressurize it with this Schrader valve, and then this braided steel line right here is gonna go right to our turbo oil feed, which I have a AN coupler on. And then we're gonna pressurize this to like 60 PSI, 70 PSI, and then we just turn on this ball valve right here. We do that a quarter turn, and it should push oil into the engine. And while it's doing that, I need to manually crank the engine around, kind of crank it over with the crank pulley bolt that's down there. So I'm gonna be under the car, kind of rotating the engine slowly around just so that the oil can go through the oil pump and such. So I'm gonna see how this works. I can hear it, I think. So I just saw some oil at the bottom of the dipstick, which means that, in theory, oil should have went through the whole system, and now it is just draining into the pan from like the oil squirters and stuff, and it should be in the oil pump. So what I'm gonna do is disconnect the lines, get rid of the rest of the oil that's in the tank here, fill it from the fill cap like normal, and then we're gonna crank it and we'll see if we have oil pressure. So this is gonna be pretty exciting. Let's see what happens here. All right, engine's ready to crank. We have the family watching. Let's see if we make oil pressure. Take you inside the car here. I'll give you this shot right here. Here's our oil pressure. Here we go. Nothing yet. All right, let's try it again. Hoping to see something soon. Nothing. Well, this is concerning. I'm just gonna see if this thing starts because this is ridiculous. So yeah, we never actually built oil pressure by cranking the engine. So I decided to be a little risky and just try turning it on even though we didn't have oil pressure because I knew that there was oil in the engine and we had used a special tool to get it everywhere that it needed to go. So without further ado, here's me trying to start the car for the very first time. All right, I'm gonna go for it. And if it starts, you have to subscribe and hit the notifications bell. Am I nervous? Perhaps. This is the real moment of truth. Here it is.
It started!
No, this is really not good.
Oh, why?
So there's oil pressure, but it's not a ton.
Okay.
So
It started!
That's the build.
Didn't it start?
yeah, let's try it one more time. There we go. We got it, boys! Let's go! Woo! Yeah!
Listen to that!
Yes! Let's go! Yeah! Woo! Let's go! That's what I'm talking about! That is it! That's oil pressure! Yes! We got it, boys! Let's go!
Oil pressure.
Yeah! Yes!
Bring it down. That was 10 seconds of running time.
All right, so here's the deal. We just ran the car for the first time and it started and it didn't make any funny noises, so that's a great start. I'm gonna fill it with coolant and we're going to bleed the system, make sure there's no leaks, and we're kind of just going to kind of do the break-in. So my dad is gonna sit in the car and keep it between 2,000 and 2,500 RPMs, because that's what you need to do to break in the cams and also to kind of break in everything. So I'm going to get our fancy little funnel here. All right, so we're gonna bleed the system now. My dad's in the car, he's gonna be revving it to break in, like we said, the camshafts and everything. And I'm gonna be checking for leaks. I'm gonna be doing a whole host of stuff. So I'll be kind of running around getting stuff checked out. So, Dad, whenever.
You ready for it?
Go for it.
Your oil pressure is supposed to hang at 100.
I know, it's gonna be like that. started, there were still a number of things to do in the short term, such as flushing all the break-in oil and refilling it with more break-in oil. Bleeding the coolant system, bleeding the power steering system, and also cutting open the oil filter from the very first startup and making sure there wasn't a ton of debris in there, because that could signify that something is seriously wrong with our engine. So that is what I was going through in these next couple of shots. So that wraps it up for this episode, and now it's on to getting the car ready to be driven for the first time. So that involves installing the clutch master cylinder, clutch lines, brake lines, and that's actually pretty much it that I need to do until I can actually drive the car like up and down the driveway. But there are still a number of smaller things that we need to do before it is roadworthy. In fact, I still need to get it on the insurance so that I can drive it legally. So that's what's going to be going on in the next couple of episodes, so please stay tuned. I really appreciate everybody that has been following this build. It really makes me happy that people are asking questions and tuning in, and a lot of people seem to be learning a lot. So really, really excited. So thank you all out there for just watching. It means a lot to me. So yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one, and I hope you all stay safe and have a good one.